UFC Vegas 108 only had 12 fights on that card, but 2 of them missed weight. And missing weight in the UFC is a thing that happens, but it's also kind of accepted. The penalty for missing weight within reason is a fine to your purse. If you miss weight in a ridiculous fashion, obviously the fight doesn't continue. But what some fighters are doing are missing the weight, taking a little bit of a pay cut, but giving themselves an advantage in that fight because they didn't have to sweat out the extra 3 or 4 pounds. The question becomes, is the penalty too harsh? Is it not harsh enough? Or what can the UFC do to prevent fighters from missing weight and to make sure that it is front of mind and we don't end up in situations where people are purposely not hitting those scales the right way? My name is Angelo. This is Josh Thompson, and welcome to another episode of Bad Takes. Josh, have you ever missed weight?
No, I have not. I've never missed weight. I actually took a fight on 2 weeks' notice. They got me into the UFC when I fought Kid Yamamoto in Hawaii back in 2000, I think 2000 or 2001. We had fought. I took a fight on 2 weeks' notice, and I had to cut 29 pounds within the 2 weeks. And so it was a tough cut, but we was able to make it. And I fought down at 143 was the weight that we got. So
have
it was a big quick.
Did you fight anybody who did miss weight and you got a piece of their purse?
Yeah, no, I didn't get a piece of his purse, but he didn't make weight. It was Nate Diaz. Literally did not make weight.
Why didn't you get a piece of his purse?
Because they basically just said, like they do, is, oh, it's close enough. Done.
The commission didn't say he missed weight. Oh, okay.
No, the commission didn't say he missed weight. So, yeah, I had a nice little talk with Joe Silva afterwards, and I said, I think it's bullshit that you guys know, because you guys all huddled up after he got off the scale, after he dropped his drawers, put a towel around him, and then and the scale didn't move, and you guys came off, you guys all huddled up, and then it was decided that he made the weight.
Yeah.
Why? If he made the weight, why didn't the commissioner say he made the weight right there on the spot? Yeah. Why didn't he say it? Why didn't he say, yep, 155 pounds or 156 pounds?
That is sketchy.
Did not make it. You, Dana White, Joe Silva, even Rogan was like kind of peeping in a little bit, and the commission all huddled up, and all of a sudden he made weight.
Yeah, see, that's sketchy because it's one thing like with Daniel Cormier with the towel and stuff like that. The fighter's going to do what the fighter's going to do.
Yeah.
But once the commission, those are government employees, once the commission is like not being the stability there or not being the independent, like, no, I don't care if this fight happens or doesn't happen. I'm only here to make sure the rules are followed. That is a little tricky. But so in that world, though, where a fighter does miss weight and you get a piece of their purse, sometimes it's worth giving up a piece of that purse. Meaning, if you're 3 or 4 pounds overweight and you know you are going to destroy yourself to try to make that, which will absolutely affect your performance in the cage the next day, it might be worth saying, give him 20%. I can't cut anymore. Give him 20% because I will win the fight. Just give him the 20%.
Yeah, no, it is. It is 100% worth it if you're someone that you know is not going to make weight. I also feel that there is ways for the UFC to kind of combat this type of situation. If both guys come in, because what happens when you land, say you land on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, you land in Vegas or wherever it is, and they say, hey, they take you back to the Apex area, and they say, hey, we have everyone step on the scale, we weigh you. Some guys are going to weigh a little bit more than others. And those fighters, the UFC needs to have a conversation with. Do we need to make this? Because Bellator did this, Strikeforce did it every once in a while. Do we just make this a catch weight? How much do you weigh? How much do you weigh? If I see that so-and-so came in at 178, and they're supposed to be fighting at 155. You came in at 178, and the other opponent came in at 176. Should we
you're both heavy. Can
you guys just want to just fight at 170? We'll consider it a lightweight fight, or have you guys fight at 165? So you both have to cut 10 pounds or, 14 pounds or whatever it is between now and the time you guys fight. So you're not killing yourselves. Then I get a better performance out of both of you as a promotion. You're both not depleted and taken down. That's one way of doing it. But then the argument is are you guys really 55 pounders then?
Yeah.
Are you guys really fighting at 55? And do you guys get used to that? And then what happens when you have to really make the weight? Because now you get used to fighting at 165 versus fighting at 155. Can you make the weight at 155? We got to see you do that. So that's where it gets a little sticky there. In terms of the pay, it's also up to the fighter. After you miss weight, I don't care if it's by 0.5 pound or 7 pounds. It's still up to me whether I take the fight. The problem is when it's only 1 or 2 pounds, it's extremely frowned upon for the person to take the fight or not take the fight.
Not take it, yeah.
Who didn't make the weight. who did make the weight. Like if I made the weight,
Look at Wonder Boy. They just penalized. Wonder Boy got screwed.
yeah,
Michelle Pajeda missed weight. Wonder Boy said, I'm not taking this fight. That guy missed weight, and I was depending on him being tired. Like I'm relying on him to have to cut the weight, to be tired. So if he's going to come in here full energy and missing weight, I'm not taking this fight. And the UFC was basically like, then screw you.
yeah.
And Wonder Boy, like, obviously he didn't get fired, but like Wonder Boy, the UFC talked shit about him. They were mad at him. They didn't pay him, and I don't know, legally speaking, what he was owed, what he wasn't owed. They didn't pay him, like, the show money. And it's like, this guy did what he was supposed to do. His opponent screwed it up, but because the UFC still wanted that fight to happen, they were pissed at Wonder Boy. So yes, there is an air around it where if you made the weight and your opponent doesn't and you don't accept the fight, depending on the circumstance, you're the asshole, not the guy who missed the weight.
It fucking baffles me.
It's crazy.
That's the way that it's approached. And I understand the promotion's done what they're supposed to do in terms of promoting the fight, spending thousands and thousands of dollars, maybe you could say hundreds of thousands of dollars, making sure that your face or your image and your likeness is all involved in all the promotion. Problem is, it's not my fault. I did my part. Like, my part is to actually show up, make weight,
be mad at him,
fight my ass off, and do the best I can. That's my job, and I did my job. I'm still available to fight if this guy can make the weight. That's the frustrating part, I think, for the fighters that don't take the fight. They know they're going to be frowned upon if they don't take it. If the fighter misses it by a half pound, or if he misses it by, 3 or 4 pounds. What I get into is that if you're within that half pound or a pound, I'm taking the fight. Maybe even a pound and a half. Once you get past 2 pounds, it means you really just stopped trying. You got to a point where you just didn't want to try anymore, because 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, you either just have no idea how to cut weight, or you just decided to stop trying at about 2 pounds. Because that's the hardest part. The last 2 pounds is always the most difficult part to cut, because you're dying. You're struggling to get it. You're struggling to get to that position where you need to step on the scale and make weight. And that means that you didn't want to try.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The number, like, as somebody who watches the fights and bets on them, if I see somebody missed weight by 1 pound, I'm actually like, he actually tried, and he was done. He tried as hard as he could. He hit a wall. If you miss by 3 or 4 pounds, I'm like, he didn't even try. And honestly, I'm going to bet on him, because he's going to have all his energy. Like, this dude's going to be fine. This dude's going to be totally fine. And we saw that last week. Rafael Estevam missed weight by 3, 4 pounds. Dude was fine. Completely fine. And he's somebody who historically has struggled with cardio. But if the other side, that other camp, said, no, make him cut, he may not have been fine. I've been on that side to manage fighters for a while. Nick Newell, one of my fighters, we get a call. It's a Bellator fight. We get a call, I believe the night before, that said he's having a hard time making weight. Do you guys want to do a catch weight? And me, Nick, and his coach were like, no, make him keep cutting. We knew we would just take the fight eventually and take the money, but you're not telling them that. Like, no, make him keep cutting. Make him keep doing it. And tell him there's no fight if he doesn't. So we put that kid through hell. He kept cutting. He ultimately missed. And then Nick got his money, but also made that kid continue to cut his weight. Yeah. And it was tough, because Nick at the time was like, well, I don't want to cut weight either. And his coach was like, no, we prepared. You're fine. You will cut the weight. You're fine. We'll get his money, and we're going to suck the life out of him. I have a solution to all of this, though, Josh.
Oh, please, I would love to hear this.
Clearly, the money isn't enough, right? Clearly, it's not enough. Some fighters, because if you don't make that much money, 10, 20% is not a huge number. If you have a ton of money, 10, 20% might not matter that much. So the money doesn't seem to be deterring people enough. To me, in a fight, in the actual fight, if you commit a foul, they take a point away. The weigh-ins, you miss weight, you have committed a foul. I think you start that very first round with a point deduction if you missed weight. Now, not only, and you still keep the fine. The fine should still be there. So now you lost 20% of your purse, and you are already behind on the scorecards. You are now not in an advantageous position because you didn't have to cut the weight. You are quite literally behind on the scorecards, and you have to cover that ground. And I think that's a great deterrent.
So I would normally agree with you on this if we had more than 3 and 5 rounds. That's the problem. So like in a 3-round fight, you're already taking a half point or a point away. It's just too much. Like the fight's already been pretty much
the weight. It's completely within your control.
I understand. Look, coming from someone who's never missed weight, I understand what you're saying. But I also I don't know, you're changing the way a fighter is going to fight and putting the pressure on them to fight certain ways because, and which I get it.
Did it
I
to
understand.
himself. Like, this
I
is
know
the
he did it to
most
himself.
self-inflicted,
It
like,
is. It is. But like if you end up being that fighter, you're gonna end up having more fighters who miss weight of them not taking the fight. So then
oh,
you
because then like, fuck it,
yeah,
I'm not. It was already going to be close. Forget
yeah,
it now. Yeah.
yep, yep. So they're like, yeah, you know what? I didn't make weight.
All
I'm
right,
good. I'm
that's
not
the only
gonna
valid argument you have. The other argument's bullshit.
fight. You're really getting into that where they're like, yeah, if I'm not gonna wait, I'm gonna lose my money. I'm gonna lose 20% or 10%. It's 20% because 10 goes to commission, 10 goes to the fighter.
Yeah.
Which I want to know why the fuck the
Yeah, was
commission
the
gets it.
commission's getting money for
Why are
that? Yeah,
they getting
what'd you
money
do?
at
Yeah,
all?
what did you do?
That's like the biggest bullshit. Like taxpayers already pay your fucking salary. What else do you guys fucking need? So they're hoping fighters miss weight. They're like, yeah, more money for us. Beat it. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do understand it. I really couldn't tell you. There's no real way to take care of this. Either you make
Because
weight or you don't.
in a 5-round, in a title fight, if you don't make weight, you're not fighting for the belt. That happened to Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
He lost his belt because he missed weight. So there is a severe enough penalty in a title fight that you will do everything you can to try to make that weight. That's not the case in a 3-round fight.
Yeah.
I don't think that the 20% is severe enough. And obviously everybody's personal finances are different, of course. But it doesn't seem to be severe enough because Rafael Estevam is the example I used. He did a public quote talking about missing weight. And he said, I'm not an athlete who follows the rules. I'm not very disciplined. I do have flaws, but I focused on preparation, not the weight cut. What he's basically saying is I was more focused on just being ready to fight and my skills than I was on my weight. I don't care about that. I'll figure that out later. So this is a guy who actively could give a shit that he missed weight. Literally doesn't give a shit he missed weight.
I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC cut him.
Because of that?
Yeah, like that, you're basically admitting that you didn't care if you made weight or not. You're admitting to the fact that you didn't try, and that's the way it comes across. Now, whether the UFC reads it that way or not, but I mean,
and there is a language barrier, so maybe that wasn't his intent. But the reality is, you missed weight, and you kind of were like, I wasn't focused on the weight cut. I was focused on being ready.
Yeah, I mean, like, what if we did something along the lines of like, hey, if you miss it within a half pound or a pound, it's like 10% or whatever it is, or it's whatever 20%. But you get into that 2, 3, 4, every pound is another 10%. Like if you're missing by 3, 4 pounds, you're losing 40% of your purse. I mean, then that's less likely for you to fight. I know that because you're like, hey, I'm already losing 50% of my purse. That just makes you want to try to get it even closer. If you're going to miss weight, it's going to make you try even harder to get it closer to the weight. So that means you are going to be struggling. I don't want to lose that much, but I also don't want to drain myself that much if I'm not going to make the weight so I can still fight. But at least you're getting them closer to the actual weight. So the fight becomes a little bit more equal. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, hey, 10% if you miss it by a pound, 20% if you miss it by 2, and then 30 and 40% if you miss it by 3 and 4. You get into 5%, people are like half my purse. And then if I lose, I'm literally getting fucking like $4,000.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And you obviously you are in the current, the way it's set up now, you also are, you're no longer in the running for a fight of the night bonus. Yeah. So you could have the greatest win and you're not going to get that 50 grand. The reason I'm going to go back to my point there, the reason I do like that point deduction is because obviously there's people who work their ass off and they are genuinely trying to make the weight. They're probably a little too big or something happened with women. This sounds absurd, but they may hit their cycle, which makes it insanely hard to cut the weight. And I've seen that on the wrestling side as a wrestling coach. So there are circumstances where, they missed weight. It's unacceptable by every account, but they tried. They actively tried. It wasn't like a competitive advantage. In that case, taking the point away, to your point, might be a little too drastic. But for the Rafael Estevams of the world, or the people that do miss by 3, 4 pounds, who actively are like, let's just not do it. I'm not going to keep trying because I probably won't get there. And if I do, it's not worth it. Let's just not do it and we'll pay the fine. So maybe it's a hybrid between what you're saying, what I'm saying, where if you miss by 1 or 2 pounds, it's the 20%. It's the current situation we have. Anything more than that, then it's a penalty. You're outside the grace here. You lose a point. At that point, you do have a competitive advantage. You're a meaningful size larger. You did not cut the actual weight, so you're not going to be tired. Because you have a competitive advantage, we're going to take that away. You're going to lose a point in the first round. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's a hybrid and there's a threshold there.
Yeah, it is a lot more difficult for the females because, like you said, if they catch their cycle, they're in a lot of trouble. The bloatedness, the way they retain water, all of those things, they can't seem to sweat. all those things. I've trained Golden Gloves boxers and a couple girl wrestlers and female wrestlers, and it's been very difficult for them if they catch it on the cycle. So I understand that portion. I don't know if you do something separate for females, but then also too, how do you check if they are? I mean, or they could just
Yeah.
be making it up. Like, I'm on my cycle. Well, it doesn't.
Well,
Okay, well,
and I don't think you can factor in excuses.
no,
Like I recognize it's harder for you because of that, but this is the weight class you choose. You don't need to fight at this weight class.
that
It
is,
what
yeah,
it
that's
is.
very true. Also, you don't also like, because it's called a cycle. There's a reason why it's called a cycle. It comes around at a certain time of the month every month, and so even though it sometimes deviates from that based on your training and maybe the weight that you're losing, whatever it is, but you kind of have an idea of when it is. Just don't book fights during that time. You know it
Yeah.
comes on the second or the third. Say, okay, anything during that week, I cannot.
Yeah.
I just cannot fight. Let's book on the 15th or the 18th. Okay, I feel a little
Yeah.
bit safer there. So, I mean, that's something to maybe take into consideration.
Well, and I don't even know. I don't have any stats in front of me whatsoever, but it doesn't feel like there's only like 2 women I could think of that consistently miss weight. Outside of that, it's not really problematic. And obviously, there's fewer female fighters than male fighters, so the stats are probably skewed there. But I don't know. It was an interesting because Trayshawn Gore missed weight at UFC Vegas 108 as well. Historically, Hamzat Shamaev has missed weight. Like we've had some very big weight misses. We've had a lot of little weight misses, but it never seems to be that dramatic. And we're not seeing favorites miss weight and then lose. There doesn't seem to be a direct correlation between missing the weight and having a poor performance.
Yeah.
So how do I level this playing field? Because you didn't put in the same work. You didn't follow the rules. You didn't meet your contractual obligation. It negatively affects your opponent. And that's why I sort of ran into I think the point deduction could help. There's only 3 rounds, so you better win the next few, but you did this to yourself. It is the most self-inflicted thing in this sport. You did it to yourself.
Yeah.
An accidental eye poke, an accidental kick in the nuts because you like inside leg kicks, that can happen. But you did this to yourself. It was all your preparation that led to this moment of you missing weight.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's a real solid solution across the board for everyone. It is a difficult situation for the promotion to be in, and the fighters put themselves in that position. But it's even more difficult for the fighter who did make the weight, who did put in the work, who did everything right, because now they're frowned upon or they're fucking
They're a coward. Yeah.
they're a coward if you don't fight the person because he missed it by 2 or 3 pounds. When you get into that 2 or 3 pounds, the opponent literally probably didn't even try to make it after that. They were like, I'm so depleted. Why would I kill myself? Just take the 20% hit and move on with my life. That's why I say you give even a harsher penalty as it gets higher up in weight, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, it goes to 30, 40, 50%. Maybe then the fight doesn't happen. Then it's not even on the fighter who did make weight because like, oh, I'm going to lose 50% of my purse and then still fight. I may lose. I could lose. Nah,
Yeah.
I'm good. So then that forces them to cut the weight to get even closer to the weight class that they're supposed to be fighting in, which equals it out a little bit more, even if they don't make the weight.
Let me ask you this, and this is a technicality here, and I don't know the answer. The 20%, does that include the win bonus if that fighter wins, or it's only the show money?
No, it includes the win. Whatever it is, if you win the fight, then it includes the win bonus.
Okay, so if you're making 100 grand, or let's say 200 grand for easy math, I'll get 20 grand if you lose. I'll get 40 grand if you win. If
Yes.
you're the one who missed weight. All right,
Yep.
got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, because it's whatever if you lose, then you get less. 'Cause you
Yeah,
can't take
it's of the total of the purse. I got it.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting dynamic, and it's definitely a problem that needs solving. Is it the biggest problem in MMA? No. Is it a consistent problem that we see every single month? Absolutely. Let us know below how you would solve this problem. If you think the penalties in place today are severe enough, if you think a point deduction is too severe, or if you don't even think this is a problem at all. My name's Angelo. This is Josh Thompson. That was another Bad Takes.